All right, we are mostly live, but we're here and back again. Paul is back. Jim is with us, or maybe some audio things.
You want to get rid of Jim before we start, Eric, so the three of us can talk intelligently, and we'll get to Jim next week.
Okay, well, we'll see.
I thought we'd get. Sorry about that. Jim is having audio difficulties, so he can't speak because of some technical problem he's having, and we'll try to get him on next week once that's resolved, but we can't have him just going in and out of here all day. So we'll focus on Paul and his life and his work. And, well, he could speak for Jim because they're co-authors.
Oh, I'm sure Jim will like that.
He can speak for Jim because Jim can't speak. They both wrote Chokeholds together. How did that work? You know what? Let me plug some of Jim's products so we can make some money. People ask me, what book should they read? What do you read? What do you buy? What do you have? To me personally, and I'm going to show you right now what I have used in the past and what I use now. First of all, and this is stuff I highly recommend. So if you're at home and you don't have these, I strongly recommend you get these for your own collections. This is the Oliver Stone film, JFK Revisited, the complete collection. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is that in this collection are 3 DVDs. One is a Blu-ray. One is Destiny Betrayed, which is in the Blu-ray. Then there's JFK Revisited. So you get 3 DVDs. That's Through the Looking Glass, that part there. And it's really worth the money. Here's the third DVD that goes with it. That's the Blu-ray one. The book Chokeholds, which Paul has co-authored with Jim DiEugenio and 2 others, highly recommended. This came out last year with Andrew Eiler and Mark Adamczyk, Matt Crumpton, Paul Bleau, and Jim DiEugenio. This is the book, by the way. Very few people know there is a fantastic book called JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass by James DiEugenio, and this is the book of the film, but there's more in the book than is in the actual film. So I highly recommend this book to people at home. Jim wrote this book. He also wrote 2 different editions. This is the second edition, which he is prefers to promote. This is Destiny Betrayed, JFK, Cuba, and the Garrison Case, with a foreword by William Davey. Highly recommended regarding Garrison, regarding New Orleans, regarding the Assassinations Record Review Board, and tons of other stuff that's in this book, the second edition. And also one of my favorites is Reclaiming Parkland, which is a complete dismantling of Tom Hanks, Vincent Bugliosi, and the JFK assassination in the New Hollywood. Now, what's really funny, I've been getting corrected by people from Dallas who are upset that I say Parkland instead of Parkland.
Oh my!
I mean, no, the subtlety is breathtaking, and I was like reading these comments, going, "What is this now?" I mean, the obsession with people on the spectrum about pronunciations. This was a new low. Apparently, you can't say Parkland. You have
just
to
don't say Oregon.
Right. You can't say Parkland. You have to say Parkland. So any way you want to call it, this is Reclaiming Parkland. Also by Jim DiEugenio with a foreword by William Davey. There's some pull quotes on the back. One of the smartest, best investigative journalists in our country, a brilliant mind. This new book is A Splinter to the Brain, Oliver Stone. There's a quote here from Cyril Wecht, a quote from Dave Talbot, and a quote from John Newman. Reclaiming Parkland is another important, timely, excellent work by James DiEugenio, covering a broad range of issues surrounding President Kennedy's assassination with attention to facts, details, historical perspectives, and thoughtful analysis. One time we attempted to get John Newman on the show, but it blew up in our faces because he wanted to run the entire show, put up blackboards and a slideshow and have a lecture. I'm going like, bro, I don't think that's going to work the way we have a show. And he told us to go F ourselves and never came back. I don't know what that was about. I mean, some kind of sundowner situation or something. But we have Paul back from last week. We had a lot of popular demand for the return of Paul Bleau out of Ottawa regarding his articles that he's written recently for
Quebec City.
Quebec City.
I love Ottawa, but Quebec City.
Quebec City, if you're looking for him, stay out of Ottawa. He's not there. He's trying to avoid the trade war at this point, keep his head down. Anyway, Paul had written a number of articles, and the website that I go to for these articles, and I noticed Paul's, and reached out to him again, is kennedysandking.com, which is Jim DiEugenio's website, and it is a clearinghouse of articles and information like the articles that Paul wrote. One of them that I wanted to ask Jim about, which he recently wrote, which we'll get to next week if we can get him back, is The Helsinki Corridor by Bart Camp. I don't know if you read that, Paul, but apparently Bart Camp, who is the expert on Prayer Man, has written or is coming out with a book about Oswald in Helsinki before he gets to Moscow, and how they've covered up. And Jim is reviewing the book in the article, so I wanted to ask him about it. How the whole storyline collapses in Helsinki with Swedish intelligence and Finnish intelligence involved, and these quick visas, Paul, that he gets to go on to Moscow. All of that is in the article and the upcoming book, apparently. Again, there was always something fishy about Helsinki, but apparently this guy has now written a book about Helsinki, which I can't wait.
Bart is very detail conscious.
Bart Camp?
Oh yeah, I met him in England, and yeah, he's very detail oriented. He wrote Prayer Man,
right?
And that's an interesting book. Prayer Man is so interesting because he collated somehow, because Oswald was interviewed, I think, 6 or 7 times during the 48 hours, right, that he was before he died.
Yeah.
And you know what struck me about Prayer Man with Bart is he compares notes from Fritz Hosty, because it's different people interviewing during different sessions.
Right.
And look, since they didn't tape it, since they didn't have a stenographer.
That's what they claim. Well, I mean, they were taping. Yeah, I mean, they were taping other interviews, so they had a history of audio taping stuff there. But you're correct.
Begin with the insanity of that.
Right.
You know, the most important interviews in the world ever, and they can't afford a tape recorder or something. Okay.
Well, also Fritz's notes, that he claimed that he didn't have notes, and people saw him taking notes. So, I mean, it's just the idea that you wouldn't even take notes is insane, right?
I read his notes, by the way.
Right. Okay.
No, but they're first of all, they're incredible by the questions not asked.
Right.
Like, could you tell us what happened after you left? How did you make it to the Texas theater? You know, like, how did you make it there? They didn't want to go there. There are questions they did not want to ask.
Or they deleted them after the fact. I mean,
maybe.
I'm sure they asked them everything, and they just released what they wanted to release.
What's interesting, and I'm glad, you know, just so what's interesting, in one of the questions, they asked him, where were you during the assassination? And he said he was with Junior and another guy, 2 black employees at the Texas School Book Depository in the, I think it's lunchroom or the cafeteria, I forget.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Junior, in his interview, says, well, there was some white guy who was there, but I couldn't identify him. So you have Oswald had an alibi.
Well, keep in mind also,
because
for people at home, Junior was a heroin addict who the Dallas police had a record on, and they flipped him after the fact. He had left the school book depository. They brought him back, and they worked him over, not physically, but they worked him over psychologically and verbally to construct his story. But you're correct about Oswald in the lunchroom, which was the domino room, right, Paul?
Yeah, well, yeah, there are two places they could have either a snack or eat. And but here's the key thing, and I'm not a Dealey Plaza expert, but in his book I found it interesting, is how could he have known that Junior was there? Because how could he have known that? So your alibi works. The other thing he said is, well, what did you do after? He says, I joined Shelley and the gang outside the depository to look at the motorcade. So he says he went down. But so Prayer according to Bart, could easily be Oswald or someone near Oswald, but right behind the crowd, behind a bunch of people. But again, he knew where Shelley was. He knew where Shelley was. So in both cases, he was correct. He was correct in placing people. So I found that very interesting, the alibi. And
also interesting, Paul, is that he integrated the domino room intentionally as the only white eater, like he did on the New Orleans bus system, like he did in the courtroom when he went into court against the Cubans. He notoriously integrated everything he ever did. And he ate in the domino room, which was the black lunchroom for people at home. Dallas was completely segregated at the time, had two separate lunchrooms in the school book depository building. Oswald ate in the black lunchroom, and that's why he was able to be identified. And he stood out like white on rice.
Literally.
Well, the other thing that Bart does in Paramount is everybody from the text pool, every employee is accounted for either on film or in their testimony or by other witness sightings of them. And if Prayerman is an Oswald, then it's clearly nobody else from the Texas School Book Depository. So you went from by process of elimination. I found that really interesting. And then he said, well, could it have been some observer that's from the streets who somehow goes up behind the employees who are on the steps? And he points out, well, there's absolutely no testimony to that effect, that someone spotted someone going there. So, the case for Oswald being in the lunchroom and at the very top of the steps, it makes sense now, according to what Bart put together. I found that really
compelling.
Clever. Yeah, because he even went through the footage of some of the camera footage of the people who were in the motorcade or followed the motorcade, and actually got glimpses, of the front steps. And through those glimpses and the interviews after and all the film, you're able to place the people. So that's what Bart did, but I didn't read the Helsinki corridor.
Right. Well, that's something you should take a look at. Well, the book will come out, and then we can read the book. But I mean, I think it's a preview of the upcoming book by Camp.
Go ahead, Eric.
Hold on. Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, before we get rolling, completely and deep into the topics, we do have a sponsor today, and I would love to share this with everybody. And we deeply, deeply appreciate it, because it's tough times on the YouTube streets nowadays. Today's video was sponsored by CoverOn. Most of us think getting scammed means somebody wasn't paying attention. But imagine getting a text that looks like your bank. There's suspicious activity. You click to verify it, everything looks normal. And by the time you realize it wasn't your bank, the money may already be gone. That's the problem. Preventing a loss and recovering from one aren't the same thing. That's where CoverOn comes in. CoverOn is an identity and financial protection service that combines monitoring and alerts with insurance and recovery support when something goes wrong. CoverOn includes 24/7 dark web monitoring, credit activity monitoring, and real-time security alerts. But there's also financial protection. up to $10,000 if you lose money to scams or online fraud, up to $50,000 if you're targeted with cyber extortion or threats, and up to $25,000 in home title insurance, and up to $2 million for identity theft recovery costs. Tools reduce risk, insurance reduces loss. The first 100 people get 20% off Coveron with code AUS at coveron.com/AUS. That's coveron.com/AUS, code AUS, or scan the QR code you see here on the screen. And thanks to Coveron for sponsoring this video. Thank you. I will now step aside and let you two roll again.
That was good. That was professional.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple of things. The ARRB documents that you send, what is in there of importance to you, Paul, that you feel so strongly about these documents?
Well, first of all, we're talking about virgin territory here.
Yeah.
So, which you, I'll tell you the story about how these documents became available just last week.
Well, let's explain for the people who are not as hip to this what the ARRB actually was.
Okay, so the ARRB was the organization put together after the Oliver Stone documentary, which got Congress to, enact, legislation to begin declassifying all the JFK assassination related documents. So the ARB is put together. I think it started during the Clinton presidency, but I think it was voted on during the Trump presidency. Not Trump, but Bush Senior.
Bush Senior. Yeah.
Yeah. So they get started on their work around 1993, 94, right? And that's thanks to the Oliver Stone movie. So what they are in fact doing is collecting documents from the HSCA, from the FBI, from the CIA, from the Church Committee that are all sequestered and are all not available to the public.
Wasn't there a ticking clock on how long they could last? Was there a timeout for them?
Yes, there was, but it was like 1927, I think, is the farthest you would have had to wait to be able to see them.
No, 2027, right? Or
20, what did I say? 1920, 2027.
Yeah, 2027.
Okay. Boy. So they get a whole bunch of specialists, and their job is really to say, well, can this be declassified or not, and when, right? And if it is declassified, do we declassify it with redactions? And they come up with one ruling that is, okay, whatever is not declassified, we have to declassify by 2017 at the latest. So they start declassifying a whole bunch of things, and they create what they call final determination orders. In other words, we're not declassifying this, but we're ordering you to review this, okay? And the only reasons you couldn't declassify is if you revealed an important means or method in place that could blow some sort of espionage or an identity, if someone was alive and needed to be kept undercover. So things of that reason, but of that type, it could be an objection that would be debated. And then even then you have to measure the risk versus the importance of interest to the American public. So even in certain cases, they said, well, this will be embarrassing. For instance, declassifying information around the teletapping out of Mexico City.
Oh, yeah.
Even 30 years earlier.
Yep.
That is damned embarrassing, right? And by the way,
right. As I said, when things were being released, you saw a lot of foreign countries in the latest releases this past year or two. And I said that's to save the embarrassment of these foreign countries who were tangentially connected in some way to American intelligence. In other words, the Australian submarine warfare. You know, there was a guy that Oswald befriended who was a friend of George de Mohrenschildt, an admiral who was involved in communications among submarines. And Oswald went over to swim in his pool. De Mohrenschildt had a party there. And somehow Australian intelligence into this, and those documents were withheld. Not that Australia killed Kennedy, but you're pointing out the sensitivity of intelligence organizations in numerous countries who have any tangential link to the assassination. Go on.
So look, when you read the files and listen to the audio tapes that I've listened to, and I'll get to that a bit later, what you see is a tug of war between the ARB and the intelligence agencies. No, don't release, and push it off as far as you can. You know, and they really don't want anything. Sometimes having nothing to do with revealing anything importance about the Kennedy assassination, often, and mostly to do with covering up their own dirty tactics at home and abroad. Okay, so that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, why would the intelligence people in Mexico want the release that the CIA ordered their intelligence group in Mexico City to torture Sylvia Duran? I mean, even today, that would be an embarrassment, Paul.
Oh, no, but look, I'll tell you about one file about Mark Lane a little later when we get there.
Cool. Were they trying
It is mind-boggling. I mean, it was known what I'm going to talk to you about, but you can see that the ARB is like, holy cow, they were blackmailing this guy. They're blackmailing. They're saying that in so many words. Okay,
they had photos of him doing homosexual acts, if I recall correctly.
Well, not homosexual in this case. It's being going through, apparently, and by the way, I haven't seen the photos. I don't know if they're fake. I don't know if it's true, but two women testified to committing masochistic acts on him.
Okay,
difference, but there's some sodomy in there. There's, I mean, it's horrible, right? And they showed a photo. There's a photo of him aroused in the act.
Right.
Okay, there's actually a photo, and what you have is the testimony of the two ladies,
right,
who are informants for the FBI. So,
well, this is an old technique. I mean, this is how they got Julian Assange in Sweden. I mean, this is
Hoover's playbook.
That's right out of Hoover's playbook.
And the reason, so what the ARB is saying when they're looking at this, they're obviously going after. And by the way, one of the people involved is the assistant district attorney of Dallas, the guy called Alexander. I forget his first name. But Alexander is trying. I think he's still working with Wade, or it's after. But he's saying to the FBI, "Hey, I've got some really dirty stuff about Lane. Are you interested in that stuff?" Thing is the FBI already had it, so we don't know who fed who what first. Okay, but the point is he's saying and the guy Alexander, the assistant DA in Dallas, says we have this photo and. Mark Lane has been a real pain in the neck. And if he comes here, we intend to confront him with this.
Wow.
Okay. Now, what does the FBI do? They say, well, we don't know anything about Lane, or I don't know anything. The guy is, it's a guy called, I think, Curtis or something. He sees the photo, and he's just too happy to let Dallas do the dirty work, right? And what they're trying to do is get Mark Lane disbarred in New York. That's right. Clearly what they're doing. So what was beautiful, I have, by the way,
it was Bill Alexander, by the way, who used to work for Henry Wade.
Bill Alexander, who but what you notice with time is the FBI is doing more work with agents and so on, investigating Lane, than they're actually investigating the Kennedy assassination. Okay, I mean that's as crazy as it gets.
Well, I mean, they wrote an entire paper about how to undermine Lane as a conspiracy theorist and use their Operation Mockingbird press contacts to go after him as the first conspiracy theorist, apparently written under FBI direction.
Oh yeah.
So he was public enemy number one in terms of.
He was, and Liebler. And by the way, okay, so let me come back, and we'll come back to Lane. So
Yeah.
what is it that is virgin territory here that I'm talking to you about? So I have to go back to some work done by Andrew Weiler, who's one of the co-authors of Chokeholds.
I think we've had him on the show, Eric, right?
Oh, most likely. Yeah, he liked being on the show.
Yes.
He was on your show.
So.
He's a lawyer from Canada,
Yeah.
but he works closely with a lawyer from the U.S., Florida, Mark
Oh
Adams.
yeah, we had them both on the show.
Okay, so one thing that Andrew is really pushing hard on is he's saying, look, not everything's been released. For instance, the final determination forms have not been released.
That was his thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but now he and the other thing, and this is really interesting, is he says the audio tapes of the ARB closed door meetings are assassination records, and we want them.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's
I was
gold.
in Washington, Mark and Eric, 2 months ago at the archives, and I'm seeing this battle roll out in front of my eyes. Okay. He had asked for them ahead of time. He was hoping they'd be there when we were there. And Andrew is a pit bull when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I have to give him credit. So he's there, and we've been there 3 days at the archives looking at other stuff. And on the final day, you can tell that the ARB is saying, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. We have to deal with this. And I can't tell you if they wantingly wanted to keep all this stuff hidden, but finally, just as we're leaving, they say to Andrew, we found them. We have to digitize them. Okay. In the meantime, it's made the news now is Andrew meets Congresswoman Luna. I mean, that's amazing. He meets her with Mark Adamsick and Jeff Crudell, and they go down, I think in Florida is where they meet her. And they have a productive meeting, and they again say, well, look, these are some of the and look, I'm bypassing a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But they say we want to get these audio transcripts. So with Andrew's hard work, a week ago, the transcripts were made available through the National Archives. You can go and listen to them. The audio, they're about 48 minutes. There's 47 meetings. They're all about 48, 49 meetings. So what I did is I don't like listening to 48 consecutive hours, Mark.
Wait, they're 48 episodes of 48 minutes each?
No, yeah, it's tough. So what I did do, though, is I downloaded each one, and then I just used a transcript app, transcribed them.
Oh,
right.
Gotcha. That's what that
I have 46. There's one that I'm having trouble with, by 45 or 46.
Eric, put those up again so people can see what he's talking about.
That, Mark, is what I sent you.
Right. You just put it up on the screen, I think.
47. Okay.
And we can make that available on locals.
Yes.
Well, look, there's a guy, Eli Frame, who I talked to you about last time I was on. He will help me, because the next step that we're doing is I'm putting some volunteers together.
Right on.
To listen and compare the transcripts to the audio. But if I don't want to do that for 48, I want to get about 9-10 people listening and saying, okay, because you can see, I could read, like when I would read them, okay, de Beaujolais is de Beaujolais. Okay, so they get the word wrong. Mark Lane, that sometimes is Mark Wayne.
Okay.
Because but so what we're going to do, look, I mean, this is amazing. So
can I jump in for a quick second, because this is something that I might be helpful in. You could use something like Google's Notebook LM or that kind of thing, pack all these into a specific folder, limiting the information in of itself, and then ask for it to output like all names. And so you mentioned Mark Lane, right? So you could say, hey, now look for all instances of Mark Lane. It could be any of these variants. or do such and such and such and such. And you can actually use AI to help strong arm some of this content that you're digging out.
That's interesting, Eric. It's interesting. I don't know how you get away though from, I mean, can the AI help with the audio files? In other words, let me re-listen to this, and
yes,
because a lot of it
absolutely.
is mumbling because it's mumbled. A lot of it is because you know, like I'll give you ODNV. ODNV, well, they will write it ODNV, but it's ODENVY. That's ODNV, okay? And it's a cryptonym for I think the FBI. Okay, so I know that. When I'm reading that, I know that. But so we want to put together a method. But Eric, look, by all means.
Well, you can actually, and to that specific thing, you're right. It's going to screw it up. But again, it's easier for you to parse and just look at a page and then see weird spots where it's flagged. And if you do it in a transcript style, it will tell you the time and minute, and then you just go hear the audio, and then you go correct the transcript accordingly. And you can do all the brute forcing with the AI, like Vibe or something else, which is actually free. And then you just go correct that and you refine it.
So Eric, why don't I do this? I'll send you at least 3 or 4 documents.
Sure. And
see how you can sanitize them for me.
Yeah, okay, we could do that.
We'll do that.
Sorry to jump in.
I can experiment,
be done. But we have a method going on, and within 2 weeks, what I'm hoping to get are transcripts available to everyone, where you can read it and not have to struggle like I am through the Beaujolais versus the Beaujolais, Wayne versus Lane, because the average Joe Blow out there, I use my name, but will not be able to make any sense out of parts of it. And so the interesting thing is really the only things they should have been chatting about was, here's a file. Do we make it public? Do we make it public with redactions? Where? If not, when? That's the only discussion they should have had. But every now and then, they start saying what they think. Okay.
Well, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, that's what they start saying what they think, and they say, oh my God, they were blackmailing Lane. This is disgusting. Almost words to that effect.
Right.
Give you another example. Henry Wade, right? The DA of Dallas at the time. This is in a document. Henry Wade is the guy who, and I learned this because of the files, he's the guy who told the Warren Commission that Oswald had an informant number. Okay, that Oswald has an informant number, and
oh, right, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so now the Warren Commission is, what the
hell?
Okay, this is like D-Day for the FBI, right? Because if he has an FBI warrant number, informant number, how do you explain that?
Well, he could also have a pay stub.
Okay, but listen to what the ARB board members say. They say, oh, you can see that they're trying to find things to lower Wade's credibility, and that he doesn't really understand the numbers. Okay, FBI numbering thing. But I found this out. I didn't know that Wade had once, during World War II, been part of the FBI intelligence division, and he ran 2 informants.
Yeah.
So he knew about the numbers, and he says he has an informant number. See, when you're reading that, and that you find out by reading. I'm not saying it's not available anywhere else, but what you're doing is you're getting insights into how these insiders who see the documents, and you don't know what documents they're reading, because they're being careful. Only now and then they'll say, well, this is document 1246782. Then I note it down.
I just want to interject that the Supreme Court of Texas years later overturned every single conviction that Henry Wade ever got as DA in Dallas, because he was so corrupt.
Jim was saying to me that at that time, Dallas was the most corrupt police force in the U.S.
Yeah. I think L.A. might have been a close second, because when you get into RFK, you see, guys who were CIA guys on the LAPD force who were trained at Camp Peary.
Okay.
You Sergeant Hank Hernandez and shoot 'em up Manny Pena, both were CIA trained LAPD.
Yeah. You want to hear another little scoop that from one of these files? So I'm nearing the end of the files, and I get on to another one, and I think, Mark, you're going to find this one really fascinating. So 3 months before Oswald goes to Mexico City, there's a CIA double agent from Germany that goes there, and he meets Kostakov. Okay, and his name is Schultz, something Schultz.
That's German.
Yeah. He has the...
This does not be confused with Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes, who saw nothing, who saw absolutely nothing.
Except that when he was questioned, he may have seen, I see nothing. But, look.
This is a different Sergeant Schultz, you're saying, completely.
We don't shoot people here. Anyway, he had the alias, or maybe it was kryptonite, Tumbleweed. And
Tumbleweed.
There are files on Tumbleweed that, like, I know people who know this story somewhat. But here's the thing, is that was the visit, from what I'm reading, that got the CIA to document that Kostakov was head of Wet Affairs, which he wasn't. Okay, Kostakov, this whole idea that he was wet. So for your audience, okay, why is this important? Okay, there he is, our friend. Okay, so it was important for the planners to say that while Oswald was in Mexico City, he spoke with Cuban agents, he took bribes, and we have fake records, the tapes and everything, but we have records saying that he spoke to Kostakov, and he's in charge of Department 13 of the KGB, which is the department in charge of assassinations. But to be able to make that, label him like that, right? Be able to label him that way, they needed intelligence. And I don't think that intelligence existed anywhere before they sent this double agent 3 months before. And they say, well, we'll manufacture it. And I think I have to read it again because it's still fresh for me, but I think the intelligence was that Schultz was asked to take on an assassination mission given to him by Kostakov. But it's all fake. It's fake.
Yeah, I mean, I never believed that the Soviets would have their #1 guy in charge of assassinations, not in Moscow, not in East Germany, but tucked away 1 billion miles away in Mexico City. What good does that do for the Soviets? There's plenty of people to assassinate in Prague, in Romania, in Western Europe, but this guy, Kostakov, the head guy, seems to exist only in Mexico City, which is why I never believed it.
No, and I'll tell you, I heard Kostakov talk in a documentary, Frontline, and I remember saying, okay, and look, I mean, you can't judge necessarily a book by its cover, but when you look at him, he looks like just the ultimate civil servant.
Yeah.
Who's only interested, and by the way, Russia, the wall has come down, and he's making false claim that, Oswald was there, saying they even pulled out a gun and put
right. You're talking about after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
After the collapse, okay. It's all meaningless by then.
Said that Oswald was in Mexico City.
Yeah. By then I think he was chasing his next glass of vodka. I mean, that's the only.
Or his next interview for money.
Yeah.
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 There was a lot of scrambling by intelligence people to get paid after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
So when I say it's virgin territory, okay, so what I think is when we get the, like, people can go and listen to the audios if they want, just by going on NARA, and if you look around, you'll find the link to the audios. But I find that having the transcripts, the thing is you can quickly zoom right by 75% of the, back and forth. It doesn't tell you anything. And then all of a sudden a name will come up and it'll get your attention. So you can save an awful lot of time if you have the transcripts, rather than being forced to listen to 48 or 50 minutes of a tape. So that's what I've been sending to you, Mark, but really it's going to be better when we have the corrected versions, which we're working on.
All right. Well, that's looking good. Now, who is it? Do we know who these people? Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say you could do a combination of that. I was thinking about that earlier. Even if it's just a screen on the background, and then you can have subtitles along with the audio, so people are able to read while they're listening. Because sometimes it's kind of like me watching Netflix. I can't hear the damn shows half the time. It could help them actually see that in translating. And also, you could have the transcripts with timestamps or not. People can click and go to a point in the audio. Or whatever.
You see what I've done. I did one. So I said, okay, I'll correct one. Mm-hmm. And so I've got a split screen, right? I've got the audio on one side where I can stop, fast forward, do whatever I want. And you're right, because if you download it by pressing on the minute, like the actual minute where you see the speaker is saying minute 2333, it brings the tape to there. So in other words, there's some automatic ways. If somebody prefers to say, well, no, I'll fast forward to 2 minutes and 22 seconds, it goes really well quickly. So it's taking me an average, I think, of 25 minutes per session. But look, Eric, we'll look at what we can do for that. But here's the thing: is I won't have a problem getting 10 people doing about 3 documents each there for an hour and a half, and we'll get a wonderful database. I think Eli has accepted he has a nice database of JFK related material. He'll make it available and we'll go from there.
Okay. Are you able to know who's talking at these things? I mean, do you hear Judge?
No,
and
this
Graff
is the other,
and Hall and Joyce. I mean,
you can figure it out. Okay, but
you can. I mean,
no, you can figure it out because first of all, there's one lady.
That's Anna Nelson, of course, the one lady, I presume.
There's a Mrs. Joyce that speaks something. Joyce.
That's Dr. William Joyce is a librarian of rare books, but the woman Anna Nelson, as I remember, was a professor of history at the American University.
Yeah, but that you're bringing up a good point. The only voice I can recognize from this gang is Tunheim.
Associate University Library.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Tunheim. Tunheim is the only voice I can recognize. Someone like Jim, who's spoken to all of them. He's spoken to Jeremy Gunn, I think. He'd be able to say, okay, here are the samples of the voices, and once you know them, you know them. And the problem is speaker one in transcript one is not the same speaker one.
Oh, right, that's right.
So someone would almost have to say, but I think the key thing is, what are they saying? In general, what's coming out, and the opinions that are coming out. Yeah, you're bringing up a good point, Mark, because you can say, well, is this the global opinion or is it just this person? But look, it's shocking. The Mark Lane stuff, on its worth, like what it says about what they thought of the FBI.
Yeah.
And
by the way, we have a wonderful episode of Mark Lane for anybody who wants to learn in depth.
2 or 3 episodes.
I can take that back. I don't remember doing 3, but
because he had Jonestown, and there's a lot more to Mark Lane than just the JFK. We went into a lot.
Just to be clear, a little statement in there is when the ARB says Mark Lane denies it. He denies that he's the guy in the picture. And now the picture.
Oh, I remember him denying it. Yes.
The picture exists.
Yeah.
It's not declassified as far as I know. It's not.
Right. It does look like him, by the way. I remember. I mean, whether it's doctored like that, I don't know.
Oh, have you seen the picture?
Yes, I have. I have. It looks like him, but again, it could be doctored.
He denies it. So look, but point is it's the FBI getting dirt like they did with politicians, with JFK, with everyone. And look, Garrison, there's a story about Garrison, right? In 67 or 66, he thought he was being set up. He was in a washroom. And he thought he was being set up. He says, oh, there's something. He felt he was being followed. He ran out of the bathroom.
There's a story that the Soviets did it to Oswald with an intelligence, an intelligence operative, and filmed it. There's also a story about both Alsop brothers, the columnists for the Washington Post, who I believe were gay, or one of them was gay, and the Soviets filmed those brothers separately with male intelligence operatives.
There's a rumor they've done it recently with some of our current leaders, But
look, what was Marina Oswald doing? When she was. Right. I mean, back originally, when she was in Stalingrad or Leningrad, wherever she was, or St. Petersburg, with a member of the ambassador class of another country.
So in Popov's Mole, right, by Newman.
Yeah.
Okay, so he gets it. In other words, he proves that Oswald was being followed and run in Minsk, that it wasn't true that he was just there with nobody, and he identifies the two officers who were keeping tabs on him.
Right.
And one of the people he refers to talked about Marina, and he called her a swallow.
That's right.
Which was a term for a prostitute being used by intelligence to get information. And
well, that's why she had to go to Minsk and live with her uncle and aunt. It was because she had blown her cover back where she, in St. Petersburg or wherever it was, and had to come to Minsk because she had no future there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think congratulations, because you guys have developed, just about every angle of this, and
also, Webster's name was also in her phone book. Webster, who had defected, a guy who worked for the Rand Corporation, had also defected in the Moscow kitchen scenario. He had been over there for a plastics convention, and his name was in her phone book as well as Oswald's. And Webster was a kind of lookalike of Oswald. They did kind of resemble each other. I think we once put up the two photos. There's a picture of
that's Webster.
Let me see.
Maybe I got it wrong. Let me keep looking.
Oh, it is.
That's Robert F. Webster.
Yeah, that's Webster. Yeah, there was a picture of Webster getting off the plane at one time. Webster came back to the United States. Mission was over too. Yeah, he was done. I believe he might have been part of the 13 agents that were sent by via Angleton's program. If you look on the right, there's Webster.
I think he was a false defector too, right?
It's a false defector. Yeah, obviously he was a plastics expert for the corporation, and defected, and next thing you know, he's running around St. Petersburg.
And there's a resemblance if you look at the side.
There is a resemblance. The height, the look. The height vaguely. It's better than the guy in front of the Soviet embassy in Mexico City. I'll tell you that much.
Well, both of them are good bait.
Oswald. What's that?
Both of them are good bait, right? Because Oswald. Yeah. Okay, if you're a radar operator of the U-2 plane,
or have secrets about plastics, they didn't even have plastics yet over there. They didn't have any plastic yet in the Soviet Union.
No, so there's good bait there. No doubt. They're good lures.
But the combination, the thing that links them is Marina Oswald. The thing that links the two of them.
That's incredible.
And we did a full episode on Webster, by the way.
We did a full episode on Webster, so I'm not.
Did you read Gary's book on Webster?
What's that?
Gary Hill's book on Webster?
I'm sure he has.
Wilderness and Mirrors, I think.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So what struck me with that is that you see the debriefing Webster gets that's documented, and supposedly Oswald isn't debriefed. That doesn't make sense, right?
Well, there is a
Oswald.
debriefing in Rotterdam that nobody
Yeah.
talks about except me. You're aware of it too, the Rotterdam debriefing of Oswald. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lady's name is who confirmed it. I forget her name, but look, why the claim that he wasn't debriefed? Like,
It's absurd. First of all, he tapes his diary to his stomach to avoid Soviet agents, and on the train, he has these documents, which later became his diary, taped to his stomach. He gets to Rotterdam, turns it over to them. He's then lie detected or truth serumed in Rotterdam, depending on which story you listen to, by our own agents, who were O&I, by the way. And Marina is taken shopping by a female agent to get her out of the house, and so they could talk specifically to Oswald about what he had learned. And there's plenty to learn. You know, as I pointed out in this episode, the only intelligence we had pre-satellite, pre-Starlink, pre-outer space was human intelligence, guys on the ground. And if you look at what he wrote about, Paul, it's about how everything works, how the phone works, how the trains work, how you buy something in a department store. All of that was human intelligence that we needed to see how, in this case, Minsk operated. I mean, he took some photos with his camera, you know, of some military installations that later appear when they're developed on his Minox. But for the most part, what he's writing about is how physically things work in the city of Minsk. And that is a complete red flag of a human intelligence operative. Because who the hell writes that?
That's a good way of putting it.
I've been on the other end of that. I've interviewed Jack Barsky, not to sidejack, but he was the longest KGB mole in the United States. And he talked about how much time he had to study normal transactions and things that we do here as people to try to come in and fit in with us. So I've literally talked to somebody doing the exact same thing, going the other way. So it's kind of old school, but very effective.
Well, because it wasn't just old school, it was the only school, because there was nothing else. I mean, until you get into satellite technology, this is the only way for centuries to actually put a guy behind enemy lines and do what he did. So you have to come up with the phony defector program that Angleton was using to place these guys in Bulgaria, in Romania, in the Soviet Union, in Moscow, in Minsk. And apparently with Webster and Oswald, they actually almost ran into each other.
Sure.
Well, you know,
and the Soviets knew this too. If you study what the Soviets said at the time, how they mockingly started laughing at all of a sudden these people defecting from the United States to the Soviet Union, they were cracking up, Paul. They thought it was just, of course they knew these were phony defectors. Who the hell gets up and leaves from New York to go live in Minsk? I mean, it's insane.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the other thing too is it's easy to see that Oswald wanted to be a spy, right? So he doesn't have an education, you know, he's not. So what's his ticket? Learning Russian.
Yeah.
And where does he get that, right? Probably in Russian language training. I mean, that's his
ticket. At the Monterey Language School. But going back to the time of being 8 or 9 years old, I mean, he's running around New Orleans playing spy with his friends, reading Ian Fleming books.
Yeah.
What was his favorite TV show you brought up?
I Led Three Lives. I mean, which he watched repeatedly. I mean, it's a double agent story. I mean, that's how, you know, people find this to be odd, but anyone who is working in intelligence probably has the same kid background. You never hear about it. But, you know, whoever works in intelligence, I'm sure when they were a kid, liked to read spy novels and watch James Bond movies.
Yeah, that's what got me interested in it, but I could never get a shoe phone.
Yeah, you had to get the shoe phone. That's, you know.
I'm talking about get smart.
And use the cone of silence, Max. And you know the cone of silence never works, Chief, but we have to use it because control manual says we must use the cone of silence.
The funniest one on that, sorry to deviate, but is when it's not working and the Chief's really happy. So gets Maxwell Smart says, yeah, but we can use the mini cone of silence.
Oh, mini cone. You got to thank Mel Brooks for all of this, by the way.
Mini cone of silence.
This is all Mel. this is all Mel Brooks. And my favorite is when he goes to meet another spy at Kennedy Airport, and the guy's getting off the plane, and the code word to meet the spy is Mets win doubleheader. And that day, the Mets won a doubleheader, and hundreds of newspapers in Kennedy Airport on the back says, Mets win doubleheader. And he keeps going up to people going, Mets win doubleheader. And they go, yeah, isn't it amazing? I can't believe they won 2 games. That's my favorite episode of Get Smart.
Oh, no, they're crazy. And look, with the mini cone, the impossible happens is the chief gets it stuck on his head.
Oh, he got it stuck on his head.
Can't get it off. So he does a whole episode with a small cone of silence on his head. Anyway, but
I mean, just the Rotterdam briefing alone, getting back to leaving the Soviet Union, going to Rotterdam, and then, the money loaned to him by the State Department to fly back. How quickly he gets relieved from the military because his mother had a box of candy fall on her nose, Paul.
Yeah. Well, I have an article on at Kennedy's and King that talks about the fingerprints of intelligence. Okay, so you can talk about the Minox camera that they tried to hide like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
The whole Helsinki corridor story that Bart's going to work on.
Yeah.
Well, here's this no-name guy, who supposedly figured out the one most effective way to get into the Soviet Union was through Helsinki, because they had their guy at customs, the Americans, who could get him stamped in there so quickly.
Yeah.
And he happens to stay in the 2 most expensive hotels in Helsinki while he's there. Very expensive hotels. There's a whole thing, then you look at...
I think the Klaus Kirke was the name of the hotel. Kirke?
Yeah, I think so. And there were 2, right?
There were 2 hotels because he moved from one hotel to the more expensive hotel.
So you look at that. Then you look at, things like, again, the guy had 6 or 7 wallets.
Yeah.
When he died. 6 or 7 wallets. Okay, you know what?
And Westbrook had one of them. So.
How many jackets?
And we know that one was planted. So
the Westbrook wallet was planted, but how does Westbrook get one of those wallets? They obviously created it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's crazy. Then so you take that. Then the way he would learn the Russian language, the things in his possession. Right when he got it, didn't he have 2 halves of a cereal top box when he got arrested, or 2 parts of a dollar bill?
Well, if you look at the Rosenbergs, and they had two parts of a Jell-O box.
Okay.
The Soviet Rosenberg spies.
Okay, I mean
that fit together.
So
it's a common tradecraft was the cutout of anything, Jell-O box, or having the other half of it.
Now, Dean Andrews, okay, his lawyer in New Orleans, saw Oswald distributing these Fair Play for Cuba Committee flyers, and he approaches him. He says, "Hey, listen, I know you're my client or whatever, but you have to stop that." He says, "It's a job. I'm being paid $25 a day to do it."
Mm.
He tells that to Dean Andrews, and that's in Dean Andrews' testimony. $25 a day.
That's pretty good.
Okay. So, I mean, look.
Well, he's obviously paid to create the Fair Play for Cuba chapter there. I don't know.
Yeah, the money
he's the only member. He's the only member.
The money doesn't work. The money, Oswald's money, if you look at the whole things, like the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, published it. He had an office. He had rubber stamping equipment. He had, he had a mailing thing that he's always mailing stuff back and forth. He had a post office box. So you look at it, and these aren't insignificant expenses for a guy who's got a wife expecting a second child. So if you look at the money, doesn't work with Oswald.
By the way, his wife at this time is mailing magazines back to the Soviet Union, magazines that were available to us, like Scientific American, Popular Inventions, She is caught by him mailing back these magazines, and that was part of her human intelligence in the United States, Paul, was to get this. Oh, she was on the job, and that's why Hosty was on her ass, because the postal inspectors were already privy to her mailing things back to Russia. Now, were these classified things? Of course not. But they were things that they couldn't get in the middle of Moscow.
Scientific American, my God.
Right. They had to have people. And they were also people who married American agents or American servicemen and then got divorced when they got back to the United States, citing domestic abuse, which cut them loose to be able to run around the country as divorcees and continue to gather intelligence. And what they told Oswald was, if you marry one of these women, you're not getting divorced. And he said, okay.
Well, you see, the other thing I did in that article is I said, okay, who did, if you look at Oswald and you say, who did he have touch points with that we know? Touch points meaning he saw, spoke with, was in, in the same room as or whatever. And I identified 35 people who definitely had intelligence connections, and another 35 who very plausibly had. Now, how many 23-year-olds, right, can you say met up with the George de Mornonshield?
That's insane. The whole, right. I mean, based on his age and everything.
Okay, he's 23, he's a no-name, but I go through his whole chronology of contacts. People that gave him Russian, I forget the name of the lady who helped him with his Russian, but she helped other people who wanted to become spies. Then, obviously Carlos Bringuier, they're all paid. Carlos Quiroga, all the Cuban exiles he meets are organized under the CIA umbrella. So there's a whole bunch there, right? And then, if you throw in David Ferry, David Ferry's flying missions are part of Mongoose, what he did with El Yado, Del Valle. So you look at all these and say, well, he just stumbled into Dallas and,
well, look how long it took for the Civil Air Patrol photo to be released of Oswald with Ferry in that cook. That photo was suppressed for decades.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, there you go. So, look, I think that...
sometimes it's one guy who knows that something should not be released. In other words, it's so compartmentalized, Paul, that the guy who knew, I'm just making this up, that Oswald and Ferry in a photo was dangerous was a guy here who said, just don't release that photo. Not everybody fucking knew not to release that photo. But when you have so many eyes on so many pieces of evidence, one guy may look at a document that you're referring to, like I was saying about Australian submarine warfare communications, and say, no, don't release that, and not have to explain himself. It's not like they have to explain it, because that would take forever. In other words, they're empowered to suppress documents from being made public. And I'm not even saying that's wrong. I'm not even saying that's wrong in a general sense. Because everybody can't all of a sudden get on the page and go, hey, what about this thing, this Oswald and Ferry thing? Let's talk about it for an hour or two. So one guy saw that, I presume, and said, fuck, don't release that photo, whatever you do.
Well, I'm deviating a bit, but Clay Shaw, right? So we're arguing that Clay Shaw's connected to Oswald and the Clinton witnesses saw them together. So let me tell you a little something I did. Because I was saying, okay, I went through the Garrison files. Yeah, there you go. So I go through the Garrison files, and I'm looking at, well, what's Garrison's proof that Clay Shaw is Clay Bertram, right? What is it? So the first massive piece of proof is the actual arrest sheet that's filled out by a guy called Habergas, right?
Habergas.
And on question five, that they ask him, do you have any aliases? He says, yeah, Clay Bertram. Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good clue.
And he fills it out.
Yeah.
Now, the way people try and pull that back, okay, we know that during the Garrison trial, the judge did not want to accept it as proof because apparently there wasn't a lawyer present, or
Right.
there wasn't. But he was, you see, he was accompanied by someone in the police station that was flooded with people. There's a lot of noise going on. But the guy says, well, I never had heard him answer Clay Bertrand. He just didn't hear it. That's all he was.
So what?
But that's
So
the
what?
proof to say, oh, look, this guy was nearby or not, I didn't hear it. As if Habergas would have just filled in a name like that. Now, the second one is you have his identification in the airport by a hostess in a lounge who saw him sign in as Clay Bertrand.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you a third one. This is one I worked on. So in the Garrison files, you have a Clay Bertrand library card.
Mm.
So the Clay Bertrand library card.
Interesting.
Okay. I'd have to, you know what? I'll show it to you.
Right on.
I'll try and find you the Clay Bertrand
Right on.
library card. But so it's signed Clay Bertrand. So in the Garrison files, you have many places on documents, you name it, that he signs his name, Clay Shaw. So here in Quebec City, I found a handwriting expert who was often asked to be testify during court cases on handwriting. So I asked for a freebie. I said, yeah, do you mind looking this over and can you do it? She wrote something. I'd have to quote it. I mean, I could take a minute or two to go to that article, but when you see it, okay, she says, oh yeah, look at the C, look at the L in Clay.
Oh, interesting.
You can hypothesize
Yeah.
that it's the same person. She says in a different way, but I met her and we had lunch and she says, oh no, you can tell that it's very similar. And she was really, really interested by the fact that he used a French name, Bertrand.
Mm.
Now his middle name, right, for Clay Shaw is Clay Laverne Shaw.
Mm.
Clay Laverne. So she's wondering, is there a French stimulus to using Bertrand? Why did he use that?
That's Crawford's middle name too, by the way. Interesting.
Yeah.
Pardon? Oh yeah. Well, you know where you.
Well, don't forget he flies with ferry. I think either Quebec City or Toronto, because of
Montreal.
the nickel. Montreal, because of the nickel boycott in Cuba, that they can't get nickel, and he's operating for some industrialist trying to get nickel to Canada.
Isn't that Freeport sulfur, Mark?
What's that?
Isn't that for Freeport sulfur?
I had heard nickel also for some reason.
Yeah, but the organization Freeport Sulfur, I think, was involved in nickel. I remember,
yeah. Absolutely right. The organization itself, yeah. He was representing, like the trademark, Paul. He was representing business interest in New Orleans, legitimate business interest.
Okay, well, look, the other interesting thing around Clay Shaw, I did an analysis of as many tenants as I could find. Okay, in the Clay Shaw, and look, they're all intelligence rated. Well, not all, but a lot of them are intelligence linked. One guy who has his office there is a guy called Martin, lawyer, and he happens to be Richard Case Nagel's lawyer.
Mm.
You know, it happens to be the guy in the what's his name? The guy who took the bus there with Gaudet. Gaudet had an office in the trademark. Then you look at the founders and the board members of the trademark. Okay, and basically the trademark is what? It's a group of, that is promoting free trade and trade with New Orleans, right? And if you want to find this signature, if you're looking for that, if you want to look, that's a book review I did. But if you're looking for the one, it's called, oh God, it's in one of the articles on Oswald and the Fair Play for Cuba Committee.
I'll look around.
But you're saying they even to the amateur eye, the similarity is quite clear.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I can.
That's all right.
Well, you know what? If you just Google Eric Clay Shaw's library card, now, I think my analysis of that is in images on Google. That, you know, like the comparison of it. Okay, there's a Habergas, right? Oh, you've got it. You've got the Habergas. Look, can you zoom in on question 5 answer? Where's question? You see, guys? You see right there, Clay Bertrand?
Right.
That's the Habergas form that he filled out, and he wrote Clay Bertrand. What more the hell do you need?
Nothing. They're just saying they were looking for a technicality to get it out of the witness pile.
Now, if you scroll down, I think that's the one that has the library card. Okay, that's Habergas, right? So, and he signed an affidavit saying, well, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's the registration book.
This is Jesse Parker. This is this is the lady who said, look, Clay Bertrand, I identified Clay Bertrand. He signed the registry here in the airport for the lounge. You're going to get to, there you go. There you go. Okay. You see Clay Laverne Shaw, Clay Laverne Shaw, Clay Shaw, Clay Shaw. That's his signature. Okay. Now, this is the library card. You'll notice that it's Clem Bertrand. Sorry, Clem Bertrand. And look, it says international trademark.
Oh, that's a tip off.
Okay. Now look you see Clem Bertrand. You see the CL there?
Yeah.
Now compared to
that's the same. Yeah, you could. Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah.
Okay, now look, it's not me saying. Scroll down. This card was dismissed. Okay, for whatever reason. Okay,
the phone numbers did not match or something.
Yeah. Now you'll see the lady's report if you scroll down a bit more. Yeah, this lady. Okay, this is Graziella. She is a specialist in handwriting. Okay, and there's her certification, and she deals with American specialists and Canadian, and she's one of the top in Canada. She's been on the radio and all that. And look, I said, I wonder what a handwriting expert might say. So I look at it and look at what she says. You'll scroll down, and she gives her opinion. Okay, so that's what I send. Hello, Mr. Bleau. There. I have reviewed the signatures you sent me. I must first tell you that these signatures are not of good quality. That's true.
Yeah, we knew that.
Copies of copies, ideal. Despite everything, I can tell you that there are several similarities between these signatures. She talks about movement, tilt, proportions, spacing, continuity, graphic level. Okay, this makes it possible to retain the hypothesis subject to that they were executed by the same hand. I am surprised to see the use of French names Laverne and Bertrand in the signatures. Well, Laverne is a real name. Bertrand is his alias. But, it is New Orleans. So, but there's something there. I'm telling you. Okay, and someone else did, a handwriting expert had been used. But Jim talks about that. He did something around that during the trial. But, I mean, look. You come and tell me Clay Bertrand isn't Clay Shaw. Now, why is that significant? Why is that significant? Let us remind everybody how the Clay Bertrand name came to be important. Is that Dean Andrews, who was a lawyer for Oswald, said that he was approached over the phone, he says, by a guy called Clay Bertrand to represent Oswald after the assassination. Okay, so think of that there. That means Clay Shaw called Dean Andrews and says, I have something, we may need you up in Dallas. And Clay Bertrand, what's his name? Dean Andrews was sick in bed, he had pneumonia. He was sick, he was in the hospital.
Not to mention he was on a retainer too for other legal matters with Clay Shaw.
Well, he used to say that to pay for Oswald, because Oswald had met him a couple of times.
Yeah.
And the guy paying the bill was Clay Bertrand. So
Well,
Clay Shaw was paying
claimed,
Oswald's bills for Dean Andrews.
He claimed this was to correct his military discharge, right, Paul?
Discharge, but he was
the Dean Andrews would help him legally to get his military discharge.
So a couple of times, Oswald, when he showed up, at least once, he showed up with two other Latinos, and they were often within that. There were gay Latinos, so these were often. He had clients, Dean Andrews, who would get caught on these moral charges and represent them. I would think for Clay Shaw. Okay, Clay Shaw is involved in all this sort of stuff too, and I don't know how many of them were, used by Shaw or whatever. I can't tell that, but
right.
Okay, I can't tell you that, but he's helping out with this stuff. Okay, so one of the guys he helps out is Oswald. Now, for whatever other reason, Oswald's on the list. Now, two of the guys that are with Oswald, not sure.
Yeah, we don't know.
No, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. But two of the guys that are with Shaw are two Latinos that look a hell of a lot like Latinos that accompany Shaw to the Sportsdrome, to bars, and they always help him look unhinged and pro-Castro. And Dean Andrews describes one of them as short, stocky, really stocky, the same way Silviato describes one of the guys. The same way, what's the name of the Dallas cop who got railroaded after seeing Oswald?
Oh, Roger Craig.
Roger Craig, same descriptions. Okay, so that's another big hint is who are these two Cuban escorts that are often with Oswald? And it ends up that they met Dean Andrews with Oswald. But the key thing, again, is that's why Garrison absolutely wanted to get the truth out of Dean Andrews. It was one of the first guys. He says, Dean, that's important. You were called by someone called Clay Bertrand to represent Oswald. Who the hell is he? And
well, didn't he get a perjury conviction against him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you exact nature of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think of that, I mean, there's a dead giveaway there. I mean, I don't get bogged down in the whole Clay Shaw story and everything, but I mean, still.
Well, he was clearly he was up in Clinton. They were doing something up there, trying to get somebody a job in that hospital.
Yeah. Then you get into the whole Permandex story and everything like that, just unravels. But it's so after a while, this you see, that's what I like with our last show together and this one also, but is that there's something really fishy in Denmark, right? Rotten Denmark, and that. So
well, if he wasn't the patsy in this debacle, we never would have heard his name, and he would have died in obscurity like many intelligence operatives do. Probably. I mean, what happened to Robert Webster? I mean, the only reason we know Popoff is because he was held incommunicado. I mean, most of these people die in obscurity.
Well, Kent gave a description of these people, and he told his daughter they were useful idiots.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good, doesn't mean they're dumb, doesn't mean that. It just means, boy, are they malleable. Are they?
I mean, look how Ruth Payne took her work to the grave. This chick never stopped working until she was had left the mortal earth, being an intelligence operative, going down to Central America during the Sandinistas and being kicked out of Central America. I mean, on other assignments, Paul, not just the Oswald situation with Marina. I mean, she literally became their audio witness for decades.
Now, who's the cop who said that the filing cabinets at the Paines were full of communist names in them?
Right. Well, that was the Dallas.
Is that Buddy Waters?
Yeah, Buddy Waters, the sheriff's department. I take it back.
Yeah.
He also found Ruth Paine's husband's Minox camera that he had. So he had his own Minox. Then there were two of them at one point.
Yeah. No. Fascinating stuff. So,
I mean, they went to rallies together, Michael Paine and Oswald. They went to a Walker rally and they went to an ACLU rally to spy on students and both sides of the political spectrum. It wasn't about left or right. It was about the assignment. They didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let's go to an ACLU rally. They were assigned to go to see a General Walker rally and see write up reports about Walker or the ACLU, according to Michael Paine.
So I have, at what point in time do you think that Oswald was being groomed as the patsy? Like, in other words, right, there becomes a point in time.
I think there were multiple patsies depending on where you are. In other words, Thomas Arthur Valley is a patsy in Chicago. If the plot was able to go, we never would have heard of Oswald the rest of our lives if Thomas Arthur Valley was able to get off a shot and Kennedy was not turned back from the Soldier Field appearance. This would have been the guy that movies were made about. Yeah. It could have been in Tampa. Would have been the Cuban in Tampa.
Policarpo Lopez, yeah.
Right. It would have been Lopez. In other words, depending on what city you're in, instead of moving them from city to city, thereby leaving a paper trail, they had patsies in various cities, which this is Lopez, people don't understand that they had guys in each city. This sounds too complicated for people, but the alternative is to expose your particular patsy as a stalker, thereby bringing eyes onto your case.
So what do you think? I have my thoughts on this, but what do you think Oswald thinks his mission is when he's asked to go down to New Orleans to start a Fair Play for Cuba committee?
I mean,
which one?
He has multiple missions.
That's what I was going to say.
Guy Bannister sends him into Tulane University to infiltrate as a student to find out who was pro-Castro within Tulane University. He takes LSD at an acid party with the students, and that was an assignment. You know, these assignments came and went, Paul. They were buttoned up, and then you move on to the next thing. Passing out flyers, stamping them with Fair Play for Cuba Committee. I think he probably had 25 different assignments at the time. The time he was in New Orleans.
Okay, but do we agree that, to me, there's two let's call them global missions going on in his head. Mission one is for Guy Bannister and for who I'm informing on, I'm collecting communist names, people that sign up for the Fair Play for Cuba committee.
Right.
Guy Bannister can then do the intelligence around these people and screen them.
That's an obvious one.
That's an obvious one, right?
Yeah.
I also think that he played both sides in this sense. This is his meeting with Bernier. You see, he's also like, this is the time where Kennedy, right, is clamping down on the camps. He's clamping down on Mongoose. He's clamping down. They want to tone things down after the missile crisis. And I have the document saying, oh, no more Mongoose there. We have to stop it.
Right. No, I mean, that's another one. How about when he infiltrates the customs house in New Orleans and outs the fact that Ferry and these gangsters are stealing everything coming into the customs house? How about that mini mission, Paul?
Okay, so what you have is an Oswald collecting communist names through his Fair Play for Cuba, but you have an Oswald who gets arrested and he wants to meet with Warren DeBreeze.
Yeah.
Meets quickly. So DeBreeze, let's assume DeBreeze is the guy who's running him.
His handler.
Okay, and he spends an hour and a half to 3 hours there. What do you think they're talking about? He's probably talking about, well, I have these names with the Fair Play for Cuba committee, but here's the lowdown on what the Cuban exiles are doing here in New Orleans. Here's what I know about the caps. Here's what I know about.
Well, let me ask you this. Can you blame the FBI for wanting to extricate themselves from any connection to this guy after the assassination, Paul?
No, yeah.
No, I'm saying legitimately.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say we ran this guy as an intelligence operative, or we ran this guy as an informant, like Richard Nixon said about Jack and the Rackets Committee hearings in Chicago, that Ruby worked for him as Rubenstein as an informant in 1952. Okay. Do you want that knowledge public? Of course not. So even if there's no connection, you still are going to suppress in sometimes heavy-handed ways that may look obviously stupid, but your goal is at all costs to separate Oswald from being an informant for the FBI and having a 201 file and employment records, for Christ's sakes, at least.
Oh, look, otherwise you have to explain that our informant was in the Texas School Book Depository.
Right. It's a mess.
And we let him there, and that's bad on us. You can't explain that.
Right. So what I'm saying is I don't blame them for trying to squash this information. It's just sometimes it became ham-fisted at how they did it. Hosty told to flush the notes down the toilet. Okay, well, what choice do we have? You got fucking notes of you meeting with the guy and his wife. Get rid of them. I mean, that's,
I've spoken to a few people, and what they claim is the perpetrators knowingly made some of these connections between Oswald and the FBI, and they knew that he'd become a poison pill. In other words, they knew that in this patsy, any investigation, whether it's other parts of the CIA, whether it's customs, whether it's the FBI, would be stopped in its tracks simply because, and even the Secret Service, because it stank too much. I have to say that.
Well, I mean, sometimes you could burn a guy out. In other words, here's a guy who publicly defects to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's in the news to begin with. Now you're bringing him back and you're running him in New Orleans, which is a den of thieves, a Casablanca, so to speak. He's infiltrating Tulane. He's infiltrating the customs house. At some point, you may use a guy too much, Eric, thereby exposing him to the entire planet. And he becomes, I hate to say, expendable.
Yeah, I buy your take on it and mine. I think it's, you see, let's go back to the last show we did together, is the people behind all of this. Again, when you look at this and you say, okay, well, who did this? These are regime change experts.
Right.
They are the people who were involved in the counter-revolution against Castro. They had to be, because all these bumps and exchanges with Cuban exiles, and then Ruby taking, it's all from that intelligence network, right? So when you look at that, you have enough traces now, I think. And I go back to the work Dave Boylan did on the org charts, is you can now see who's behind this stuff. And I go back to that Emilio Rodriguez being connected to Ernesto Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Who says to Oswald, go and meet Bringuier. Okay. And then you have Joranides right besides telling Bringuier, here's your money, here's your cash, and he's working with Bringuier. So I think the beauty of what's happened lately, and Jim's book, you talked about Destiny Betrayed. Great book.
Great book. Fantastic book.
Great book.
Yeah.
But I've been having chats with Jim, and I said, Jim, I think now you can see the Mongoose link, or the guys who are doing Mongoose. Okay, you can see now the JMWAVE link to everything you wrote about in Destiny Betrayed. The whole JMWAVE link there, whether it's Oswald trying to go into the camps. Who's running the camps? It's JMWAVE. Who's running Bringuier? It's JMWAVE. Who's running Ernesto Rodriguez? It's JMWAVE. So, I always felt, Mark, that you had, the Garrison disciples, that's Jim, Joan Mellon, William Davey, Melanson. They all wrote about, New Orleans. And then you had the Gaetan Fonzi disciples. That's Larry Hancock, and they get into the whole JMWAVE side. John Newman.
Morley too, right?
Morley and another guy, Dave Boylan. I said, well, what's the connection? Yeah. What's the connection? Can we connect the two universes there? Like, this isn't happening in a vacuum on one side and something else. They got to be connected. And we're finding the conduits between the two in the form of Joanides, in the form of the Rodriguez brothers. Another guy, Kent, who called Oswald useful idiot. Well, he was very involved in New Orleans. And there's
what I'm saying is, by Oswald coincidentally being involved in 72 different little mini operations, it's muddied the waters for all the investigators who are looking for a straight through line. There is no straight through line because he worked various missions. That's why it's so confusing to the investigators.
Was he almost like a contract worker? And I'm not trying to downplay it, but like a lower level guy, and you have him do this op, and then you just have him do this op, and then this op, kind of like a fill in, wherever you need.
He's not filling in. There's guys like him doing that. It's not a fill in. He's one of the guys who does multiple missions. In other words, you can't take a 42-year-old guy who's a friend of Guy Bannister's and say, I want you to infiltrate Tulane. But you can take a 23-year-old Oswald who looks like he's a teen, Paul, and say, I want you to infiltrate Tulane University. So it depends where that guy could fit into the jigsaw puzzle of what you need. Bannister laughing about the flyers being passed out to his secretary, who he's having sex with, saying he's one of us, he's doing it for us for $25 a day, is another separate mini mission.
So your question, Eric, is really important, because I spent a lot of time saying, okay, wait a minute. Let's try and understand the CIA jargon here, right? CIA jargon is what's an asset, right? What's an employee? What's an employee who's TDY? Okay, TDY is temporary duty. So you can take David Atlee Phillips, he's with the Western Hemisphere, but he pops up in JMWAVE, he's an employee, TDY. An asset is a guy that you hire from time to time, like Clay Shaw, like Hugh J. Wynn, like Johnny Rosselli was one. Okay. Now, what was Oswald? So you have your important assets, like people who are in the press, people who are whatever, who can feed you information, who can do things with you.
It's a huge network of people. There's medical people, there's mathematic people, there's business people. I mean, it's all walks of life, Paul.
So Oswald is an asset.
Yeah.
But he's a useful idiot asset. In other words, he's on the low end of the totem pole. I mean, it's not James Bond, right, who's going to go out handing out fair play for Cuba committee.
Well, he's early in his career. I mean, he's really a low-level person. He's what?
If you add 20 years onto him, Paul,
you've got to do everything.
But it gets worse
because he could have been David Atlee Phillips in 20 years.
Yeah. Yes. But it gets worse for him because when he comes back from Russia and he's married to a Russian, I mean, what kind of asset can you be? I mean, you're married to a Russian woman. So now what? Oh,
which is why. What is he trying to do, Paul? Get back to the Soviet Union. That's why he's trying to go back to Russia. Not because he likes the way it looks or the food. He wants to go back to continue what he did when he went to Minsk.
Yeah, I think that he there's some things saying, well, he may have been told, hey, we have a mission for you in Cuba or in Russia. And but look, the thing is that he's a useless. I mean, he's not useless. What kind of missions can you give now to a guy who's compromised by the fact that his wife is Russian?
Fair play for Cuba. If you're trying
to they obviously
it's like, hey, we got Communist 101. This guy's a hero to you. He could go in and read all the commies.
They just paint him red and let him do red shit.
Do you think, though, that the Americans
you need guys like him? You need guys like him.
Yeah. So they don't like. If he's really got the profile for the perfect
right, but what he would have done later, he would have infiltrated SDS, Tom Hayden's organization. He would have infiltrated the Weather Underground, that organization. If he had lived and his career arc would have continued, he would have been able to infiltrate as a phony painted red leftist all these other areas that needed infiltration.
He could have led those organizations,
of course,
like literally.
of course.
It could have been like Gloria Steinem, infiltrating
that's
the
why
feminists.
the radio debate with Bringuier was so important, to show his Marxist bona fides as a public figure. And as Eric pointed out, he's only 22. He's got 20 years to go, 10 years to go of this stuff.
Let me prove your point even further. So key organization that I studied was the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. And in 1963, it was in its death spiral. They had 2 national meetings that year, whereas they would normally have something like 20 or 25. They were running out of money. And the FBI's own data on it says that it was so highly infiltrated, often by Marine types. Okay, so you go to a meeting in Tampa, say you'd have a dozen people, 4 or 5 of them would be informants. So doesn't that give you a little bit of a hint that Oswald is one of these informants? Just like Thomas Vicente. Thomas Vicente, the guy who sent him all the literature out of New York, was an informant.
Well, we don't know who's who, whether there's legit guys, and
he
because it's infiltrated, we don't know, who's on what side.
But Vicente was a known. I mean, it's come out that he was an informant.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll accept
Thomas Vicente is an informant.
Right.
He's the guy who sends the lit. Now, what does he do? Some 7 or 8 months before the assassination, is he goes to Cuba through the Mexican embassy. Through Mexico. And it's documented that to go there to spy, and he meets Castro and some of Castro's top people. And who helps him go there? Anita Pataki. Anita Pataki helps Thomas Vicente go to frickin' Cuba.
Right. No, I just want to point out that for its time, Fair Play for Cuba was a precursor to the Students for a Democratic Society. Yeah. I mean, there were documented locations in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Detroit, Philadelphia, Boston, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Seattle, Miami, New Orleans, and a number of smaller or university-based, obviously Ann Arbor, obviously Madison, obviously Berkeley, all had Fair Play for Cuba committees, not unlike 10 years later with the Students for the Democratic Society. It started to be super infiltrated in 1963, but in 1961 or 1962, there were 25 cities that had Fair Play.
It was important. It was important. What killed
not just important, it was fucking huge.
Yeah.
And that's why him opening one in New Orleans was not a bizarre idea.
Well, here's what happened, Mark, is the guy who wrote a book on that. It's called Where the Boys Are. And you're right. But what started the downfall, I mean, the total spiral, was the missile crisis.
Oh,
because after the missile crisis, they say, hey, wait a minute, I'm supporting Castro. He has missiles. Look, so joining in the summer of 1963 is in New Orleans. Okay, it's the worst possible timing you could imagine. But the point I was making with this Anita Pataki, who helps an informant go to Cuba, she's working. And then she helps another potential patsy set up a Fair Play for Cuba committee in Miami, a guy called Santiago Garriga. Pataki helps him. Guess who her boss was, her direct boss?
Who?
William Harvey.
Oh, interesting.
William Harvey is helping, his secretary is helping these informants or these potential patsies with their dealings with the Fair Play for Cuba committee, right?
Well, keep in mind, there's a perfect example. How many different projects did William Harvey have in his life? 1 or 51? You know what I mean? Guys who are lifetime, full-time guys, there's dozens and dozens of projects that William Harvey was involved in, either deeply or tangentially.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think.
I mean, and they run into each other, like him and David Atlee Phillips, or him and probably Joe Anides.
Well,
and there's overlaps, right, Paul?
Okay, so the key thing with Harvey And if you go to the org charts, you will see that he headed Task Force W that became SAS. And not only did he bump into them, they answered to him, because Mexico City answered directly to Harvey. JMWAVE answered directly to Harvey. That means that your top suspects, right? Phillips, Morales, Joanides, they're a stone.
That's the takeout menu, by the way, at the CIA that Dulles is showing Harvey there for lunch. That's the menu.
Yeah.
That's right.
He's probably looking.
But I mean, we have a great William Harvey episode if people want to take a look at it. But he had his fingers in a lot of pies, and I did not know about Mexico City being one of the pies. In fact, I never saw any evidence that he was ever in Mexico City. Not that that matters.
He may not
have been, and not that matters.
He may not have been, but I can tell you this much: he's definitely closely connected to Phillips. And there's this connection, by the way, was huge for the Bay Pigs. And
yes, that's true. I mean, nobody was more embittered about the Bay of Pigs than David Atlee Phillips. And I think when he was in Chile or somewhere else, JFK visited, and he was at the ambassador's residence.
Yeah.
You remember that, don't you?
Yeah.
And he fucking looked at him. There's a photo of him glaring at Kennedy, and he talked about it later, how much he despised him. And that's where he shakes his hand the only time is at this ambassador's residence, I believe either in Central America or Chile.
Yeah. And a guy who comes close to admitting his frustration with Kennedy is Morales. As well as Harvey.
Yes, both.
Oh,
well, that's three of them right there. You're right.
That's your big three guys. It's Harvey, Phillips, Morales. You start with those three, and you work your way down, and you go to the org charts, and you go to their history, and you go to what they did before the assassination and after the assassination, and they left huge fingerprints. That's my take.
Well, we also, I think we learned that E. Howard Hunt was in Dallas, or at least Mark Lane, getting back to Mark Lane, representing Liberty Lobby in the countersuit appeal, had the jury agree that E. Howard Hunt had lied about being home in D.C. That particular week and was not at the office, but was
another bitter Bay of Pigs guy too, right?
No, absolutely. Who lied under oath about being in Washington during that weekend.
Yeah, that's, by the way, sort of Gaetan Fonzi's take. It's these extremely bitter CIA officers from JMWAVE that were infuriated with JFK after the failed Bay Pigs, and that they were the perfect people to turn to when the signal was given for the assassination, because that's what they did anyway. I
mean, it could be as subtle as LBJ saying to this group off and on, indirectly, privately, I never would have done that with Bay of Pigs like this guy did. I never would have done that. If you come to me, if I was president, I would have gone full bore.
Or saying something,
cocktail parties, you know.
Or saying, oh, we can't let Vietnam go to the commies.
That's right.
We can't have this person on the shore. We can't.
That's right.
That's all he has to say. And that means I was thinking back at what our last discussion, and I'm more convinced than ever what your point was, that you don't roll the dice without LBJ.
You can't, Paul. It's insane.
No,
you can't. People are blinded. They're blinded by the politics of LBJ, the social politics of it. They're blinded by it. I'm sorry, but it's true. Everyone who's ever investigated this thing is a fan of the politics of Lyndon Johnson, maybe not his personality, and maybe the reason that he covered it up for the good of the country. But the logical point that I made last week, and I keep making for a number of years, is you cannot proceed with this plot unless you know that this guy is not coming after you. I mean, it's insane. It's insane.
It's Occam's razor.
It's Occam's razor. I mean, you'd be mentally retarded to go and say, well, we hope that LBJ doesn't get a bug up his ass and decide to go after the plotters, knowing that it's us, boys.
And he's a nice guy. He's such
a nice
gentle
guy.
lamb. He doesn't, ever
he's
react
a
strongly
reasonable
to anything.
alcoholic. I mean, why should we worry about this loose cannon? It's insane.
All right, we got some super chats. You want
to go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think that'd be great in case there's something here for Paul. Let's see. For your CIA research, a Jesuit training college I researched was agricultural college in 1855. I'm having problems reading. I apologize. Set up by Thomas Spring Rice, former British Chancellor. Roosevelt sent his envoy to Margaret College.
I don't know what this means. So you need to come back with a little bit more information.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
it's a little vague. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a very insider.
Thanks for the
well, it is a euro, so I think it's a euro.
Is he offering me 20 euros to answer the question? Because I'll give.
It's not. No, it's not a question. He's just putting that out there, but it's just an incomplete sentence.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not sure I understand the question. So.
All right. Well, I understand this. A super sticker for $10 from Mitchell.
That was
Christie.
pretty simple. That was simple.
And Tractor Guy gifted some more America's Untold memberships, 10 of them. Thank you. And this one I saw coming in. I was like, okay, here we go.
What?
Thank you very much for the €5, but I think you're going to have to catch up on the episodes.
Yeah.
We really are way, way beyond. We don't get into the Oswald, Lone Nut. There's a lot out there for you. Go ahead and jump on it. Vincent Bugliosi wrote a book on it. Others. We're just agree to disagree.
By the way, Paul, why would Marguerite Oswald need her son Lee Harvey Oswald to come back from the Marines when Robert lived in Fort Worth a couple of miles away?
Why would Marguerite
Oswald, when she was hit on the head in King's Candy Store, need her son Lee Harvey Oswald to leave the United States Marine Corps, come home to take care of her, when Robert Oswald was living fairly close in Fort Worth? Nobody ever thinks about this.
Well, she needed the special son.
Yeah.
Let me see. King of Biltong on Rumble said, skip the gas station junk food while traveling. Packed Biltong from Biltong USA. Clean protein packed, grass-fed, air-dried beef. Go to biltongusa.com. Use code AUS for 10% off. And I literally had some Biltong right before the show. So
wow.
It definitely does work.
I wanted to see if Paul can come back next week with Jim so we could do a Q&A with the audience and let them get involved. If Paul can come back, and if we can get Jimmy, we can let these people get involved, because they have a lot of questions. I don't know what the questions are now because they're putting up crazy statements, but
Al Gonzalez is solid. I mean, what we have? Westbrook knew the transfer time for Oswald and had Sergeant Croy brought Ruby into the building. I'm really struggling to read this. If you guys,
I'll read it. Let me read it. Croy was standing next to Ruby during the shooting. No coincidence. Croy had no business being there. The door being opened, or the ramp allowing Ruby to go down, distracting the cop at the top of the ramp. I think we've kind of established that Ruby was allowed into the building to do what he did by a couple of cops. You don't need 118 cops to be in on it. You only need like 2 or 3, just like the Secret Service. They allowed Ruby to get in proximity of the perp, who was walked right into his gun and then taken away to Parkland, or Parkland, as they say in Dallas, where he expired. Now, who is the guy on the phone yelling at Crenshaw? The guy is LBJ, the president of the United States. The fact that this guy would be reduced to calling up the surgeon in the middle of running the nation that's on red alert, Paul, talk to the surgeon and tell him that a Secret Service agent with a pistol sticking out of the back of his pants is in the operating room with him, waiting for not a deathbed confession, but anything that Oswald would say, it's a little much for me to understand that this was a job of the new president of the United States. I'm sorry.
The only book ever written, there are 3 assassinations that weekend. There are many books written about JFK. There are a few books written about Tippit, but there's only one that was ever written that I know of about the Oswald assassination. And it was written by Paul Abbott in Australia. And that was, God, I am having a memory blank, but I did the foreword for the book. And Paul is a great researcher. And that one, I mean, it describes everything. It describes the spatial arrangement for Ruby to have made it in, and gone down the ramp, and it's an amazing. He's someone you should have on your show, and I'm sure you'd love it.
Well, I mean, the money that he gets, the $50,000 that he gets, an off-duty Dallas police officer helped him bolt the safe to the floor in his office. He went and bought a safe just to have the $1,000 put in the safe in his office, and this guy helped him rivet or bolt the safe to the floor in his office. And then he put the money in there, and then he gave it to his attorney, made him power of attorney to take care of the loans to his family and extraneous tax bills and that information. But at $50,000, the equivalent of that today would be close to $400,000. And I know it might be $388,919.12 to the people in the spectrum, but I'm just rounding it off to $400,000 for the point of making a story. Nevertheless, the amount of money was enormous for him to rub out Oswald.
This one right here, I might even know the answer to. I forgot the guy's name, but if Oswald is homesick that day, who would have played out the Patsy? I'm going to say Curtin guy. The one who had the rifle.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who could have been backup patsies. Curtis was one of them, and they were threatening him with the electric chair.
Exactly. So I'm thinking that he literally was the alternate patsy.
One guy that was bandied about was a guy called Harry Powers, who is linked to Oswald and was another communist. He was part of I think the Communist Party, and there were rumors that he left a Mannlicher Carcano in Indiana after the assassination.
The guy they arrested, a little guy they brought into the same jail, the same police headquarters, with dynamite in his trunk. A guy out of Fort Worth, that short guy who he might have been a patsy if it didn't work.
Sounds like he's a candidate anyway.
Yeah, he just had dynamite and rifles in his trunk.
All right. Well, thank you, 72 Camber and Pamela. Happy Tuesday to you as well. Thank you so much. And Paul, have we got you pre-booked for next week at a minimum? Hopefully we can get Jim to do a Q&A. And Mark, we're heading into 100 JFK episodes soon. You realize?
All right, what do you want me to do about it? Let's say goodbye to Paul. It's been 2 hours. We got to go to local.
Hey, and listen, I wanted to tell you one last thing is I do go and see the comments after the show, and when I can answer,
get in there, bro.
I gave some answers to some people, and they're very nice. By the way, they're very nice. Smart. You have a smart audience, and they're very gracious and thankful, and they obviously you have a very loyal following there, Mark and Eric. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, Paulie.
Thank you, sir.
Nice being on your show, and I'll be on next week if you want.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate it, bro.
Take care,
Paul. Thank you so much. And Mark, you and I are going to head over, and Torn from the Headlines is coming up momentarily for people who are interested. Go head over to Locals. Check it out. You might like it. If you don't, well, you'll see it in a couple days. But hope to see you there. And that's it for now.